So here's kind of a process that we get to. I mentioned that essential questions is important and it's difficult. And I love being a thinking partner, and I love having thinking partners because I always ask, well, what do you think of this question? Get me some feedback. So for example, we were discussing an essential question in Charlotte's Web. So why do we do what we do? Was this discussion. And I suggest when you're throwing out ideas, write them all down, no matter what, because at some point you'll say something and someone will say, yep, that was it. What did you say? I don't know. What did I say? But if you're writing it down, you will it will morph into a wonderful essential question. So then we talked about, why do friends make the world better? How does friendship change our lives? And ultimately, this teacher really liked, how do people change our lives? Because the other one was, she was trying not to be leading, that it influences our lives for better, because sometimes they can hurt our lives. So she just put it out there, how do people change our lives? And we don't know what direction students are going to go. Okay? And Charlotte's Web is one text that she's using in this unit, or planning on using. Our partner, Kim, this was kind of our discussion that we had. She was teaching, and she uses OpenCourt, and I think OpenCourt is used in this district as well. And so she was trying to reframe her units using inquiry units. And so one of the, she wanted to have a unit on survival. And I think, is that a topic under one of the fourth grade? Okay. And she was using Island of the Blue Dolphins as one of the texts. And then we were discussing, okay, what makes a strong person? How do you change a bad situation into a good situation? What are bad situations? Why does someone survive? And this was a teacher that this particular year, she had many of the students in her class experience death. I think there was a death from one of the students, and then there was a lot of divorce, and then there was a terminal illness in a family. So there was a lot of bad situations going on in the classroom, and she felt, how can we, this is obviously relevant, and survival, you have to survive some of those situations as well. And so she was trying to leave it open to allow students to also discuss those personal things that were going on in their lives, and using a text to maybe begin that conversation and make that connection. What basic needs must be met for people to survive? Why do some people try harder than others to survive? And finally, with help from her team, she then went back to her team and also listed everything that we had talked about. She just wasn't really set, and these are the two that she narrowed it down to, and she opted to use these two. How does a person overcome a bad situation? Because she's not just stating one bad situation. The child could pick whatever situation that was bad for them, and how a person can overcome that or other situations, what skills they need for that. And why do some people try harder to overcome difficult situations than others? So she thought those were important conversations that needed to happen in her classroom, and that this text would allow those conversations to happen. And then some ways to generate questions. So you can reframe required text or topics so that it matters or solves a problem or fulfills the original purpose. Reframing a standard so that it matters, which is connecting back to the activity that Kelly had you guys do earlier. That's how we're going to begin generating some of these essential questions. And looking around the community for a connection to a topic, and identifying the problem or question from the discipline that is that this data addresses. So, we're going to let you brainstorm some essential questions. So looking at the sheet with the 4 quadrants that the planning and pacing sheet that Kelly just had you guys complete. Based on the standards that you gathered, what could be a possible essential question? And on top of that paper, on the top row, you see EQ. That stands for essential question. So brainstorm some possible essential questions for that unit. Now, underneath that, it says possible text. If you already have some text in mind, that's where you can list them. But later on, you can bring in other information or other text. So just do the essential questions. And Kelly's handing out a worksheet for you to help you in your generating of an essential question. You got some good essential questions going here?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Because something that we've been talking a lot about is like self-respect and standing up for your beliefs. And so like that's been kind of an anticipation survey that I've been doing, but sometimes the 7th graders don't really understand like what self-respect is.
And it's different. People have a different idea of self-respect,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And we know that. We see the students.
Yeah, yeah. And so kind of trying to make this connection between like standing up for your beliefs, kind of like giving you self-respect, but you kind of have to have self-respect to stand up for your beliefs.
So then, like, what is worth standing up for?
Right.
What would you die for? What would you stand up for? You know, that kind of going around that really hooks students.
Yeah.
Like what's worth fighting for?
Right.
You know, and why?
Yeah.
And giving them that language and that power and that thinking is very powerful. Okay, I think we have some great essential questions out there. Does anybody want to share what they have? Anybody? Yes.
My essential question is, did climate change contribute to the cause and effects of Superstorm Sandy?
Okay. All right. And that's relevant right now. Yeah. But not just right now. They can research lots of other information. I can't just give you an answer off the top of my head, or just go and just give you some whatever answer. It's going to take reading multiple texts to generate a solid argument. Yes?
We were talking about history, and you could apply this to anything, but one of the questions we had is, what's the moral responsibility of the U.S. to be in the Middle East right now?
Have fun with that one.
And now, you know, that
Oh, yeah.
would be something that there's no black and white answer, and kids are going to have, you could apply that to any period of time, or whatever, but, you know, they're going to have, I mean, you're going to have some different perspectives there, and it's going to cause the kids to think.
Yeah. Anybody else? Do you guys have a good one?
We had somebody, we liked whose story gets told. You kind of helped us with that.
Can you talk about the whole process, our kind of conversation that you guys were having?
We're having a Veterans Day Assembly, and we teach about the Pilgrims, the Native Americans, everything coming up, and it's like, why do we pick, and Martin Luther King Jr., why do we pick Sir Columbus? And who do we pick to tell their story and why? And so the essential question is, whose story?
Yeah. As they were discussing, well, how do we honor, or, you know, should we honor? Who should we honor? How do we decide that? It's like, yeah, whose story gets told? And that can be transferred into different content areas as well. Really.
Honestly, in kindergarten, what makes, who is a hero? What are the qualities that make someone a hero? To get the kindergartners thinking about that.
And the great thing about that essential question is that you're going to use that in kindergarten. That example I gave you, Rachel Bear, who's the leader of our team, she uses it with AP. She uses it with her seniors. So, we had a conversation back there on is this too heavy for fourth graders? Could fourth graders tackle the question of, what makes a successful person? Or how do you define success? And it's like, I'm sure they have some opinion. Is it right? Is it wrong? Is that the point? Is that what matters? Or is it that we're discussing and we're thinking through this really important question,